This is Robert Vigna from Immolation, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. And tonight's guest is
Robert Vigna of Immolation.
Yeah, promoting the band's newest book, Into Everlasting Fire, the official history of Immolation.
Yeah. They just got off a European tour. I think they're going to maybe in the new year get on the road and maybe a new album.
Yep, sounds very promising. Let's get to this interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. Robert, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Robert, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, we're very excited to have you. So let's get right into it here. Immolation recently returned from a European tour with Cannibal Corpse. Can you talk a little bit more about the experience and opportunity touring Europe with Cannibal Corpse?
Oh, yeah, it was great. I mean, it was Cannibal Corpse, Municipal Waste, and Schizophrenia was the opening band. And yeah, all great people. We all had a great time. We've known the Cannibal Corpse guys for many years, and it's always great to tour with them. They're a phenomenal band and good friends and really good people. And the European tour was just unbelievable. I mean, every tour we've done with them, I think that was the 7th tour that we've done with them over the years.
Yeah.
And we did about four or five tours with them in the past in the 96, 97 area. And then we did one with them recently in 22. I think it was at the end of 22. And that one was phenomenal as well. But every year they're just getting bigger and bigger. And, it's just great, like they're doing so well. And we're so happy for them. And the fact of going over to, because the last tour was in the States, so this one was in Europe. So it was really cool to go over there in Europe with them. It was a phenomenal tour. We got to play a lot of cool places we would never be playing, like the Roundhouse in London and all these, really big and interesting and, places that are famous and stuff. So yeah, it was really cool. I mean, they're even blown away sometimes. They're like, wow, this is the biggest tour we've ever done. And then when we go on the next tour with them, they're like, well, this is the biggest tour we've ever done, So they're constantly growing and it's awesome, and, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were, together with Municipal Waste on a bus. So those guys were super cool. Another really great band and super cool guys that have, been doing this for a while. So that was a blast. We all got along well. And, it was just everybody. Schizophrenia guys were awesome too. So it was a fun tour. Just a lot of good people. And that's what makes a tour great when, everyone's just having a good time, enjoying it, and are all there for the right reasons, just for the music and just to have a good time and interact with each other. So it was, it was awesome. And the crowds, the fans were just absolutely amazing. So we were really, really, excited for that tour, and it really went, beyond our expectations.
Fantastic.
Nice. I know you mentioned the one in London, but is there a particular venue that stood out to you on the tour?
That was definitely one of them for sure. I mean, that place was just, it's like I think I've actually heard of it before, and it was in the Camden area, which is really cool because we usually play a few other clubs we've played over there before, like I think it's called the Underworld, and a couple other that are literally like down the street, and it's also down the street from the Camden Market. So that was just a very cool day because we got to go into Camden Market and check that out for a while and hang out, and then the show itself was just ridiculous because it's almost like a mini. It's just like a mini arena almost. You know what I mean? It's maybe like 30,000 to 3,500 people. I don't know, but it just has that feel. And yeah, it was just a phenomenal time. So one of those really cool places to play. So yeah, we were psyched. I think we did another really cool place in Bristol, which was I forget the name of the place off the top of my head. But again, this was more like a place you'd see like. Classical music, because I think there was like an orchestra that played there the night before this tour came through, so it's just pretty wild, I think it was the Bristol Beacon or something like that. And again, another phenomenal show. So the UK was just totally on fire this time for sure. And then just everywhere else we went was just great. Every show was just pretty much, I think I sold out probably like 98% of the shows, so it was just awesome.
When you're talking about a tour of that magnitude across, Europe, schematically wise, where was the stronghold for the touring outside of England? Was it somewhere else in Europe? Would you say that there was certain areas that really had a grasp on the death metal scene?
I'd say pretty much every place we hit had a good grasp. You know what I mean? Like on a tour like that, you're not really going to have any duds. You know what I'm saying? It's like the package was phenomenal, and Cannibal themselves just do great on their own, really. And so every place we went was just, on fire. It was like going to see Slayer back in 1985 at Lemoore or something. Like the energy was there, and that's what I'm saying. Like we've noticed that over the past few years, where a lot more younger people are starting to get into the music, and the energy is really on full swing right now. And these past few years have just been phenomenal. The amount of people that are coming out. The fact that all these younger kids and younger bands are coming out and, good stuff. And like I said, the younger kids are getting into it. We see a lot of young kids in those crowds, and that's awesome for guys like us that have been doing this, for like almost 40 years, so it's really cool to see that because, death metal in general, extreme music has had its ups and downs. And I know with death metal, it had a lot, definitely a couple of downs for a while there, like in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so we've seen the scene go up and down. We've been here the whole time. We've ridden that wave, you know what I mean, up and down throughout the past our whole career, really. And so it's good to see such an upswing and such. It seems like it's on fire like it was back in the early '90s when it first started. So it's really good to see.
Fantastic.
Well, I know we've talked to some artists on when they go to the European tours, they either can't take a lot of equipment with them or because maybe the logistics just don't work out with it. But how does it work for you as far as like the number of guitars you take with you?
Oh, we're pretty low maintenance. I'll just bring we have these Anki cases, which you might have heard of before.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like these, they've been around for a few years, but, for us, it's just amazing to be able to put like two of your guitars in one case that actually can roll, and you could set it up on stage, take the cover off and just leave it on stage if you want, and it just makes life very easy. So we basically would take like one of those each, and then we, being that there were like three bands other than Cannibal that were, opening, we decided to kind of we shared like a back line of equipment that we rented from Gates to Hell in Germany, a company that does rentals. So it was awesome going in there because, they had just everything. We were like all floored with our mouths open walking into that place because they had just it was like a giant warehouse of equipment. Here's a bunch of drum sets, here's a bunch of heads, here's a bunch of amps, it was just crazy. So we basically got the equipment from, we rented like a drum set and a whole back line from them. And, Dave from, Municipal Waste had his own kit that he had a kit custom made. I forget the name of the company, but he had brought that over there like a year or two earlier. And so they were familiar with that company, and they hooked us up with that. So we all just rented from them. And, like I said, we, those two bands, us and Municipal Waste, shared a bus. So we went there and picked up all the equipment at the beginning of the tour. And our merch guy came out and brought the merch. So, yeah, logistically, it's a lot to deal with. But when you've we've all done it a few times, and when you work together, like all the bands were kind of working together to try and just, make it as easy as possible. It makes life easy, so, but yeah, you just kind of have to go through the process ahead of time. So this way, when you get there, everything's set, so that was half the battle is all the prep work. You know what I mean? Like all the prepping for these tours, especially a Euro tour, you need to do up front. And then once that's done, it's a lot of work, but then once you get there, at least everything kind of falls into place. You know what I mean?
Very good. I mean, it's no secret that Europeans have a special love for death metal. Can you compare and contrast touring and playing live touring in Europe opposed to that in the U.S.?
It's hard to say. I mean, Europe definitely has always been kind of like, maybe it's been a little bit more. I think heavy metal in general has always been bigger in Europe, or more like accepted for a much longer period of time in the I guess in the overall sense, whereas in the States it's always struggled in the sense of like, the mainstream really doesn't have anything to do with it. But that's changing, which is really good to see, because we've noticed that especially over the past few years. I mean, you have like, take Hannibal for instance. They just went out with Amon Amarth on that big tour. And I think Obituary was on that tour too. It was like a bunch of great bands on one tour with Amon Amarth headlining. And they were playing places like Red Rocks in Colorado. I mean, that's like phenomenal. You know what I mean? Like, that's like unheard of. Even Cannibal was like, wow, this is like a bucket list moment for us here, like to play a place like this. So, things are definitely picking up here and in a big way, which is great to see, for people like us that have been into this for so long since the beginning, But Europe, there's always just been a deeper, I guess, love for the music over there, I guess. But overall, I mean, it's been really getting good in the U.S. as well. So I'd say they're pretty even now in a lot of ways, and it's good to see. It's good to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I read one article about ESP guitars and the Arrow. Is that still a popular model for you, or have you tried anything else out there?
Yeah, that's our instrument of choice for sure. Yeah, I mean, ESP's been really good to us. Tony at ESP's just been awesome with us, and all the guys over there. And we love the instruments. I started using them back in like 2015, I think, and haven't looked back. They're just amazing instruments. And Alex has been a fan of the ESP guitars since he was a kid. So. We're very happy with that. And the Arrow for us, for what we're doing, I use what I need to when I need to, but my preference is definitely the Arrow. It's 90% of the time I like using that type of instrument for what we do. It's just easy to kind of like work with in the way we operate on stage. It's just, I just enjoy it, and I love playing those. On occasion, I will take out some of the kind of Strat bodies that they have, like the M unit, the M2s and stuff like that. Just because there's certain times when you go away and you're flying from show to show. Like if we go down to South America for a few shows or something like that, sometimes I'll take the smaller guitars so I could have the smaller inky case and have less to deal with. You know what I mean? Sometimes lugging like a giant, the larger case around every day on a plane, it's a little easier when you have a smaller case. So sometimes I do that. But yeah, I love the Arrows. They're just absolutely amazing, whether it's an E2 Arrow or, the LTD models. They're all on fire. They're all great. So,
it's a good looking guitar too.
Well, yeah, they come out with a lot of different versions too, which is awesome. Like a lot of different looks and different stuff. Like the different pickups are on it. Like we use Fishman pickups. Those to us really help us with the sound, because they're very they have the distortion and the power you need, but they're very clean and have a nice clear sound as well. So we usually have the ESP guitars with the modern what do you call it? The modern Fishman pickups in there. So it really gets a good sound.
Yeah, I guess that was my follow-on question: is as far as technology with guitars, has it changed much in the last couple of years, or is there is there anything coming down the pipe that you're interested in?
I got to admit, I'm not really a gear guy, like in that sense, you know what I mean? Like Alex is more the gear guy, so he would be able to tell you. But from what I've seen, I think the biggest thing for me was those the Fishman pickups that over the past few years that we've changed on, just because I think the technology of how they put those together is done in such a way where each pickup is almost like exactly the same, as opposed to, from what I understand, the old way they did pickup. The old way they created pickups, each one was slightly different in the way they're created, whereas these are done a little bit differently. So I noticed, compared to other pickups I've used in the past, these get that power and they get the performance, but they're a much cleaner, clearer version without a lot of that noise and hiss, so that to me is, definitely important when you're playing such intricate type of stuff or involved riffs and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it brings out the clarity, which is really needed for not only the studio, but especially when you're playing live and you have two guitars trying to match up. You want to be able to hear them, and sometimes having too much distortion or too much feedback or fuzz or noise on top of that, doesn't help. So we're, really happy with these. And that's, the biggest thing that I've seen. And I know there's like that Evertune that they have. I don't know much about it, but I know Alex has one of those. It's called Evertune. And basically, once you set it up, it just doesn't go out of tune. I think even when you try and bend the string, I've heard it doesn't change because it's compensating. You know what I mean? But I could be wrong on that, but I think I've heard that. But basically, it stays in tune all the time. Which is great. But I just have the standard type of guitars that straight off the shelf from the SP myself. The standard ones, but they're phenomenal. They stay in tune. I never have issues with them, so that's me as far as gear. It's like if I get something I like and I know it works and and it does, it does the business, then I'm good. That's it.
Very good.
And they're dependable, very dependable. So to me, that's what's the most important. We're going on tour, whether these things are flying in an airplane or they're in a trailer in the cold and the heat or whatever, and they're always there for us. They're always the ESPs are always on working great. So that's why we stick with them.
Well, there's no secret that Immolation has been considered one of the leaders of the East Coast extreme metal scene. Can you give our listeners details of the origins of the New York extreme metal scene and what is the scene like today?
Well, it's still pretty strong. There's still, a lot going on. I mean, we just did a local show, which was cool in Amityville, New York, and, just into Long Island. And it was us, and we had Malignancy there, and Mortician, and Internal Bleeding's from Long Island. The rest of us are from Yonkers over the years, So, we grew up in, Yonkers in general, there was we were the death metal in that area, you know what I mean? But New York City, from what I remember in the old days, was hardcore is the bigger thing, but metal was there. And a lot of influence came from bands that were overseas, like the German, thrash movement of stuff like, Destruction and Creator. And then you had South America stuff like Sepultura and, so many bands we were influenced by were pretty much from overseas, but we kind of got into them and just started creating our own stuff in the New York scene. And then we saw other people in other like-minded bands, and we would kind of meet up with them or get to know them through other friends and then set up shows with each other. And that's how it went, and you had your tape trading, you just go to a local studio and record a couple of songs. And then you stick photocopy the cover on that tape, and make a few copies and give them out or mail them to other guys that, they didn't do a band. They did a fanzine, which was like a magazine, but just a photocopy version of stuff. And they would basically do their own interviews and reviews on stuff. And then they'd photocopy that and send that out to bands. And that was kind of like our web back in the day, it was like, we didn't have the internet, so basically you'd send out, a letter to someone either overseas or wherever, say like a fanzine, here's my demo for review or whatever. And in that, maybe you'd have flyers from a bunch of your buddies' bands, either locally in New York or from another part of the world. And you put all those paper flyers in that. And when that guy opens it up at the other end, he sees all these flyers and like, oh, this flyer for this band looks interesting. Let me contact them and I'll get their demo, and that's the way it was. And that's how it worked, and that became our World Wide Web, basically the metal underground web, and funny today to think about that with, the internet and the way things are done now. But back then, that's the way it worked, but it worked, and we got in touch with people from all over the world, and, it was amazing, it was like, for us, it just opened up the door in our eyes to wow, there's so many other people, and, there's such a big scene out there, and kind of learned about that little by little, and we were only in our teens, 16 to 18, we were doing this stuff. So, it's crazy, but it expanded and here we are today.
Absolutely. Good, Jeff.
Well, you talked a little bit about the ebbs and flows of the death metal scene. What can you or maybe your other band members do to kind of push those boundaries and, keep it alive?
Well, you just have to, keep going. You know what I mean? We've been through everything, we made every mistake you can make and more, you know what I mean? So you learn from your mistakes, at least you hope to, but I mean, you just have to keep pushing forward, and that's all there is to it. You just have to keep going. it's easy to quit anything, that you start, but if you're into it enough, you just got to keep going. And, musically, you just have to go with what feels like right to you, what you're doing, what you want to do. You can't worry about what everyone else is doing or trying to be this, or I'm going to change. So, cause that's popular now. It's like, trust me, we've seen bands come and go and we just kept on doing the same thing. And, it's just the way it is. You just do what is right for you, and it's worked for us so far because it's always been uphill. It's always been an uphill battle. Don't get me wrong, but things have always gotten better ever so slowly for us. But, at this point in time for the band, we're in our, 50s now, and it's like probably the best it's ever been, you know what I mean? All around. So we can't complain. And it's always that it's the passion and the ambition that keeps us going, but you have to just keep on it. You have to keep going after what you believe in, and just enjoy it and have a good time.
Oh, well said. All right. Big question here. Into Everlasting Fire, the official history of Immolation, book is it released yet? Is it pre-order right now?
It is out now. Yeah, it was pre-order a little while ago. Now it's officially out, and I think they just started delivering it just about a week ago. So yeah, we know a lot of people that have gotten it now, and it was really cool. I mean, Decibel Magazine, Albert has been from Decibel Magazine has been really keeping the scene alive. Just a big part of keeping the scene alive just on his own. With the magazine, and it's like one of the last print magazines left in the United States for heavy metal, really, and. He's also been doing these books now, and Kevin Storpenko, a friend of ours, he's a writer. He also comes out on the road with us many times to do for the past few years, doing selling merch for us and some other bands. And he's passionate about the music too. So basically, they approached us about doing the book, and for us, we're like, all right, if you think it'll be interesting enough, we don't consider ourselves too interesting, you know what I mean? So, but they felt the story was worth telling, and we appreciated that. And Kevin did an amazing job. He spoke to so many people, not only obviously the band members and some past band members and our story, but it's also, he talked to a lot of industry people as well. And it kind of gives you an idea about the whole scene in general. It's not only just about us, because you'll talk to people that have either at a record label or whatever, and you kind of get a little bit of background on them and their view about the scene in general and about us. So it's kind of cool. It's a little bit more than just our history. It's like almost like our history, but also kind of like gives you that whole idea about the whole underground and the time that we grew up in and how the music in general and the scene kind of developed over the years.
I guess the question I have is like, as you're collaborating with Kevin about, with this book, how do you, in the rest of your bandmates, I guess, narrow down what is important to put in this book and like, okay, we don't need to put this in there, or is there anything that you guys felt like, oh, we should have added this to the book as well? Talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, well, this was really his thing, like he just interviewed, like me and Ross would get on the phone with him together and he would do interviews with us kind of together. And then he just went out and he'd interview like Steve, our drummer, and then he'd go interview Alex, our other guitarist. Then he'd interview a couple of the past members. He'd interview Monty Connor, who used to work at Roadrunner, who's now working for Nuclear Blast, which is the label that we're on. And then he just took the ball and ran with it. So he was doing everything. There were people that got interviewed, like Brian Slagle from Metal Blade. We didn't even realize he talked to him. We're like, oh, that's awesome, So he talked to all sorts of people, and he pretty much just, went through the history of the band, and he would kind of direct the question. So he'd just ask us a question, and we would just go through it. Now, of course, he's going through so many years, you know what I mean? We're talking almost 38 years of history here. So he got through everything. Believe me, he did a phenomenal job. But yeah, of course, there's like a lot of stuff that we didn't get to. And there's, obviously there's some things we didn't get into because, for the most part, we wanted the book to be a positive thing. And we haven't had a lot of negative things happen. But even if we did, or, which we did, there was no need to put the negative stuff in there. You know what I'm saying? It was more about just trying to tell the story of where we came from and how we ended up where we are now. And that was it. But, there's always things, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of things we think of after the fact, but this was just kind of like, kind of like the basics, you know what I mean? Which when you're covering that much of a period of time, it's a lot to deal with on its own. You know what I mean? So yeah, there were definitely things we were like, oh, we could have talked about this, or, oh, we forgot about this, or, even like photos, like we gave them tons of photos and a lot of those didn't make it in there. So there were people that maybe we realized, oh, we didn't really talk about them in the book. Well, we're trying to send the photo in, but it's a book. You can't have everything. You know what I mean? So obviously they had to edit it down to whatever, because Albert and them all edited it and had to. It is what it is, and that's fine. We understand. So yeah, there's always stuff that you wanted to be in there that wasn't in there, but overall, yeah, I mean, they did a phenomenal job. I mean, Kevin did a phenomenal job. He had to take all this information in and just go and write. You know what I mean? Like, so it was all him, really. It's his book. It's like, and he kind of like just took all those stories he heard from everyone and just kind of did the timeline. And it was really cool the way he did it too, because he starts the book off when we did the headline show when our last record came out at Irving Plaza, and he takes it from kind of like that moment, and then he goes back in time from there. So it was kind of cool the way he laid it out. You know what I mean? It was really, really well done. And Albert, went through it as well. And the way Albert put everything together and the photos and everything, they really put a lot of energy into it, and we are thankful. It's really, really pretty cool.
Fantastic.
We've talked to some artists that, they go on an extensive, elaborate book signing tour or something like that, or maybe you're just going to have it on the table at the merch table at the shows. But how's it going to work for the band?
Yeah, you're probably right. Maybe because we're our touring schedule now is pretty much done. We just did a festival in Quebec, last Friday, and then we just did this local show in Amityville to kind of close out, the touring for this cycle. So now we're pretty much just going to start writing stuff. So I'm sure once we start touring again next year, we'll have some books available at the shows. But yeah, we're not really going to do too much of a big, no signing tour. Maybe Kevin should go on a signing tour, but he put in all the work. So, but yeah, we're nothing planned like that. Pretty much, the book's available from Decibel, and I forget what company is doing it, but he did set it up so people can order it from another company in Europe. And so yeah, for us, it's just kind of like surreal, really. Like, it's almost like, wow, this is just so strange, having a book about the band, because we don't feel that, it just feels like, really, so it's a little weird, but yeah, but very cool.
Oh, so cool. Well, the band has released a large body of work since the band's inception. But, when you look at the band's body of work, is there an album out there you say, hey, yeah, this is my favorite album. This is our best piece of work? And on the flip side, do you have an album that you could say, man, I wish we could have a redo on that one. I'd like to re-record it. Talk a little bit more about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Harnessing Ruin, for instance, definitely an album. That was like, I forget what number album that was. That came out a few years back, but, that one I'd love to, it would be nice to hear that one, like, kind of remixed and remastered for sure. Cause that one just there's a lot of great songs. And I think, like a few of there are a handful of releases that I'd like to kind of have that done too, but that one especially because, a lot of great songs, and there's the production for me, and, most of the guys will tell you, it's just very compressed, and we wish it sounds good, but it's like, I could see it sounding a lot better, and a lot of things got lost here and there because, I try to put a lot of little nuanced stuff in there, and sometimes those things get lost in the mix. And in that album, that was definitely the case. And I just think with a stronger, bigger production, it would be nice to hear it. You know what I mean? But, we're usually just about moving forward. Everybody, a lot of times, people that like a certain album, they like it for what it is. And if they like it, they don't want to hear it different either. You know what I mean? Like, they like the way it sounds because that's how they heard it originally and whatever. So, and I can completely appreciate that as well. And as far as favorite records, it's hard to pick a favorite. Our first debut obviously was great for that reason, but I feel our latest two records are like some of the best work we've done. It's as far as writing goes and the songwriting and productions and stuff. Like Atonement was a great record for us. It did really well. And then Acts of God that just came out a couple of years ago. Again, I feel the writing and the production on our latest stuff has gotten better and better. So, I appreciate everything we do, but, I'm happy in the fact that we could look back at our whole career and like all the music, but even more so in the fact that our latest stuff, I think, is some of our strongest. Not to say that, I think there's a lot of strong stuff all throughout, but I feel like, we still have a lot more to cover, and we're still kind of moving things forward with the band and not just trying to, settle for anything and just kind of like rest on albums we put out like 20 years ago. We're always trying to create and make something that's interesting and a little bit different for us or different than something we've done, and just keep it fresh, and I think we do that pretty well, especially on, like I said, our last releases, where we're not changing the core essence of the band, but we're always kind of expanding on it without changing the band altogether and the sound altogether, that it's where it's something it's not, you know what I mean?
Very good.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your partnership with Nuclear Blast. I think you've been, with them for maybe since 2010's Majesty and Decay.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that partnership? I know their website's pretty user friendly, interactive. I bought a few things from them over the years.
Yeah, I mean, they're a phenomenal label. They've been, they've been at this for a long time. I think they wanted to sign us many years ago, and we had already, I forget exactly what era that was, but we were already maybe dealing with Roadrunner, or we got on Metal Blade. But so, it came full circle eventually in 2010. And Gerardo, who was running things there at the time, basically pushed to get us on there, and it worked out great. And we've been super happy. I mean, the labels we've been on in the past, like Roadrunner, Metal Blade, we were with it was Olympic originally, and then it ended up being Century Media. But we were still in our younger stages, and trying to do the best we could with that. And then eventually, things just went a different direction. So so all those labels were great. But I think as far as like Nuclear Blast goes, I think we were at our best at that point. We finally kind of like gotten our right way of doing things, and they were super into the band, and it just the combination has been working ever since, and we're very happy, and they've been doing a phenomenal job for us. So we have no complaints. They're very easy to talk to, and like right now, Tommy Jones is running things here in the States, and he's been doing a great job. And again, I've done work with him before. He's like a video guy originally, and I used to do like lighting work and help him with video stuff in the past. So he did a couple of our videos, Illumination and The Glorious Epoch. And now he got in touch with, started working with Nuclear Blast, and then eventually just went up the ranks. And now he's pretty much running things in the California office. And it's just great. You could just pick up the phone call, and pick up the phone, make a call or email, and they're like, right, any questions you have, any concerns, they're always on it. So very happy to be with a label that's so into the band and just very positive. It's just been a good experience, And like you said, the first album was Majesty and Decay, and from that point on, they kind of were like, hey, here's Harloff said maybe try him as an artist. Hey, there's this guy Zach we know from California. It'd be good to mix this stuff, and it just worked out amazing. And that's why from that point on, they kind of steered us in a good direction to help with the production and everything else with the band. They're always trying to push things to make the band better, and it's been that way ever since. So yeah, very happy to be in a situation with them.
Yeah, as we encroach 2025, what does the band have in the works in the new year? Any extensive touring? What's going on?
Well, we're just going to get a new record written. I mean, that's the main concern right now. We are working on some stuff, possibly just a handful of shows in the spring, maybe. And maybe we're trying to put together a Euro tour for the end of the year, like in the fall. But really concentrating on getting the new record done. That's our number one mission right now, is to get the new record written and recorded. So we're hoping to get that done by the springtime.
Oh, very good. I have one last question for you, then we'll leave you alone for the evening. So,
no worries.
We interviewed Cam Lee of Massacre a few years ago, and I was shocked. Mm-hmm. I was shocked to hear him say, "Is like, I don't listen to the style of music that I produce, that I make." Mm-hmm. He went on and said, "I listen to a lot of digital music." And for somebody like me who tries to listen to lots of different music, I was kind of shocked by that and saying, you're an extreme death metal guy. How in the world are you listening to digital music and then make this stuff? But for you, is extreme metal music your cornerstone for what you listen to, or what else do you listen to out there for? I guess maybe just for your own listening pleasure.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. We listen to everything. I mean, we're like listen to all sorts of stuff. I listen to everything from like Depeche Mode to to metal, to new stuff like Blood Incantation, for instance, or Full of Hell, those types of bands, the kind of like the newer up and coming bands. But I also love stuff, like I said, like old school rock, Metallica, Priest, Maiden, everything that I grew up with, and everything else. You know what I mean? Like I'm a fan of music, Nine Inch Nails, you name it. Whatever I feel is good music, I listen to. Whatever kind of, Linkin Park, even like, it's like, I like everything. To me, whatever sounds good to me, I enjoy. I don't, I'm not going to not listen to something because of what style it is. It's like, if something hits me, then I'm going to listen to it. Like, to me, I get probably more influenced by other music than, like different types of music than the very aggressive death metal or stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of dark music out there, like take Depeche Mode, for instance. There's a lot of dark stuff in there, or Portishead or stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of dark, twisted stuff out there that's, that's not necessarily metal, but, it's there's a lot of cool stuff in it, you know what I mean? And it's inspiring and it's cool, so. So I agree with Cam in that. You listen to all sorts of music. It's just the way to me, it's you have to as a musician. You don't have to, but everyone's does their own thing. But for me personally, like, I grew up listening to everything from Cat Stevens and Billy Joel to soundtracks like Jesus Christ Superstar and Star Wars and you just appreciate it all. It's like there's something about music that obviously everyone into music, everybody gets hit by music in a different way, and depending what mood you're in or whatever, it's like sometimes you want to, if you're doing one thing, if you're taking a walk on a trail, you want to listen to one kind of music. If you're driving, you want to listen to another kind of music, or it just depends on what you're doing. But all kinds of music are important to me. Like, I couldn't just listen to one type of music at all. I like to be open-minded when it comes to that, and I pretty much all of us in the band are from one extent to another.
Well, that's so refreshing to hear.
When you're out on the road, you get a chance to see some of the opening bands or stuff. There's the bands that are coming down the pipeline. Is there a band out there that tripped your trigger recently?
Well, as we just toured at Schizophrenia, they're like a death thrash band, and those guys, young band, but they do a great job. They're super cool guys, but they put on a great show, and they're solid musicians. The music's great, and like I mentioned, Blood Incantation, those guys are on fire. They're like a cross between death thrash and Pink Floyd, and they're doing phenomenal now. They put out a new record, and I think we're going to be seeing them Saturday up in Toronto, so I look forward to that. Those guys, and we're good friends with them. We toured with them a couple of times. Full of Hell's another band. They got their own thing going on, and also really cool guys. So there's a lot of good, new stuff coming out. Mortiferum, they're very dark. There's a lot of good young bands, and I notice the young bands are they're really starting to go back into kind of like creating stuff that we listened to back in the day. So it's refreshing because, the music, death metal and extreme music has gotten a lot of different directions since it first started out. And now it's kind of coming back to that older sound in a fresher way. But it's that atmosphere. There's a lot more atmosphere in it these days than there was just a few years back. It kind of had a lot of atmosphere in the beginning, then it went to a different kind of phase, and now it's going back into that kind of like older school sound, but a newer version of that, which is just phenomenal, and for us, being around so long to see that is just it's great. It's kind of like the roots are coming back into the music, but yet for a whole new generation, and like I said before, you see all these young kids out there coming out to the shows, and all the kids got the denim vest with the patches and all that stuff now is all big again. I'm like, wow, that's the way it was when we were kids. So it's phenomenal to see that, So yeah, it's cool. It's very cool.
No, very good. We're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
No, I think that's it. Just the book's out. Check that out through Decibel Magazine. I mean, they did a great job on that. I think anyone that's just interested in this kind of music and where it came from and maybe kind of what it takes to kind of, carry that through about 30 some odd years or more, it gives you a good idea. So it's, I don't know if you have to be into the band or not, but probably for fans. But even if you're not a fan, I think you'd get something out of it because it's an interesting read. That's really it. We're going to be, like I said, just working on new music. And then in 2025, we hope to be back playing some more shows and just with new music out sometime toward the end of the year, which will be great.
Yeah, we're excited for you. Well, this is how things are going to work out. But once Jeff, the editing ninja over here, gets all of my boogers cleaned up, we'll make us sound like $1 million. And then we'll send you the link, and please share it to all your socials. We'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And again, I apologize for having to cancel the last time. I appreciate you guys working with me on that.
Yeah, we know all about that for sure. Thank you so much for your time. It was a great opportunity getting to interview you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thank you guys. We really appreciate it and looking forward to checking it out.
All right, man. Have a good night. We'll be in touch.
Great.
All right,
thank you very much.
Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both their eyes. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances.
Welcome to the night. You think you know Night Demon? Then the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast is for you. Step into the darkness as we peel back the curtain to give you an unprecedented, all-access look into the mind and the heart of the demon. We're talking band history, song analysis, studio anecdotes, stories from the road. It's everything a diehard Night Demon fan could want and more. This is the only place to learn the inside scoop, the deep dive trivia, the untold tales from the band members themselves and those closest to the Night Demon story. Need more? The sacred Night Demon Crypt will be pried open to reveal demo recordings that have never before seen the light of day, all with in-depth commentary by the band and the people who were there for the writing and recording process. This is a gold mine, a treasure trove of all things Night Demon. Head over to nightdemon.net or wherever you listen to podcasts.